Yeah. So we were just discussing EBSCO and Cengage Gale. Those are the main players in the research database manufacturers for K-12 schools. And they are multi-billion-dollar companies, and they market these research databases as a safe alternative to an internet search. They say that they are curated for appropriate age appropriateness and relevancy. And we have found some very disturbing information in these. So, you know, we feel we're seeing the porn industry in our schools. When you think about the porn industry, you have a $100 billion industry there. And what could be a more brilliant marketing strategy than getting a captive audience of K-12 students? So we're finding, and I'm not going to say there's no scholastic material, of course there is, but they're embedded with pornography. We get reports from all over the country and in Canada, and sort of a steady drumbeat of normalizing sex work and other unhealthy messaging that goes on here. So the next few slides, I'm just going to go through some examples. We've kind of cleaned it up a little bit. The kids can see all of this. So I'm going to show some examples. This is from Gale, and this happens to be from a library, and it's homework resources for middle school. So in this Gale database, they're advertising articles and books that are obscene and harmful to minors, such as Butt Magazine, which has hot links to a website that has nude adults basically soliciting children through this portal. This is the next one. This is Gale One File High School Edition. And so playing with race, racial BDSM. I'm not going to read this out loud. I'll just leave it up here. But I will comment that pornography is very well known, of course, to have heavy themes of violence, misogyny, and racism. So this evidently is the type of thing that the Gale Corporation feels is scholastic and age appropriate. The next couple of slides show EBSCO, and I chose this one because if you look at the top, it says Mass Ultra School Edition. So, and we actually located these types of articles. Sometimes they float to the top of very benign searches, like this one was just on toy industry, and you got sex toys. And there shouldn't be anything like this. We frequently see the same lineup of sex shops advertised over and over in these databases. This one is called Wet for Her. We see Babeland, Adam and Eve, Love, Honey. You get the same ones over and over. And then this next slide, I chose this and I put the web address up at the top. If you're interested in going on the website for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, we did some work with them to look at EBSCO. They have a very, very good set of articles about EBSCO on there. They put EBSCO on their Dirty Dozen list as a major facilitator of the sexual exploitation of women and children. And the pictures that you're looking at on here, some of these images were directly embedded into some EBSCO databases that were being used by K-12 students. And a couple of the other ones, and we've kind of blocked them out, the students can see it. Some of the other ones are actually from Pornhub because there were articles that had hot links to Pornhub embedded in them. So let's take a deeper look at what is a K-12 research database. And I think it's the easiest to think of it as an electronic encyclopedia. It's kind of like that. And so the way that these are laid out, they kind of have a sort of front door, back door marketing. So on the one hand, they're going to their publishing and advertising partners, and they say, give us all your stuff. And so that might be, you know, magazines, including adult magazines. That might be academic journals, including some which are pretty fringy. It could be what they call news, which includes press releases. And they just say, give us all your stuff. We're going to market that stuff. We're going to package it up, and we're going to get it to the right audience for you, which includes K-12 schools. On the other hand, they go to the K-12 school and they say, we have a wonderful product. It's very age appropriate. It's very scholastic. It's very relevant, curriculum aligned. And so you can really see that sort of financial conflict of interest that they have there. And I just want to pause for a moment because I am talking about the two main corporations. You have EBSCO and you have Gale. And there may be, you may hear me mention ProQuest, but those are the really big ones. So you just have a couple of very, very large, huge multi-billion-dollar corporations. And by the way, they partner with each other. And it's worth just reflecting for a moment the degree of control that these corporations have over K-12 curricula and messaging in our schools across the country and even around the world. So they boast of curating this information for school students. So they're selecting, they're curating, they're putting it together, they're deleting what they don't like. And I think that they have far too much influence. And of course, our interest has been about pornography, obscenity for minors, but I do need to point out that these databases tend to be very biased. And there's, as I said, a kind of a steady drumbeat of promoting sex work, promoting abortion, promoting gender, unscientific gender theories and things like that. So there's a lot of unhealthy messaging that's going on, and that appears to be under corporate control. So you have that back door and the digital wall there. Where are they located? We have reports of these research or homework databases in public schools, in private schools, even in some parochial schools. Importantly, they are very, very prevalent in public libraries where they're usually packaged up as homework tools. And so this can affect homeschoolers. We actually stopped letting our children go to our local public library once we found out what was on those computers. And then around the country, I don't really have time to, go into this. I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but it's very directed and very formalized partnerships that are forming between schools and public libraries. And they're so formalized in some cases that when a student is at school, they're actually going into their school online library and using their student ID number to go out of the school and go into the public libraries. Once they're in the public libraries, there's usually no restriction on what they can get once they're in there. And they're going in and they're getting these databases. The public libraries are almost always worse than the school. So as bad as the school may be, the public libraries are going to be a lot worse. This purpose of this slide is just to show you what they look like, because they're often behind that digital wall, if you will. So when you get in, it's going to be different wherever you're located around the country, but you can see these pretty icons sometimes. You have EBSCO, you have Gale. They go by different names. Explora, you'll see often, Master File, Gale in Context, Mass Ultra. I did put ProQuest on here. We have had some problems with ProQuest, but I'm not going to talk about them too much tonight. And then I also wanted to say, this is an older slide that needs to be updated, but in many states, you actually have at the state level, so it could be the Secretary of State or it could be the state librarian. And what they do is they go and they contract with these vendors. So EBSCO, for example, and they have a volume discount, and then they bring that in to the state and they make it available to all the schools around the state, either for free or for low cost. So in that case, for example, if you were a school student in Nebraska and you go onto your school online library, you might see a link to Nebraska Access. When you click on that, you're opening up that portal that goes into all these databases. In Virginia, you might see Find It Virginia. You might see Ask Rhode Island, things like that. But the one common denominator, because this can be confusing and even off-putting to people who want to go in and explore the databases, they're almost always going to be called research databases or homework databases. So find that tab and then just go in and see what you have in there.
I think we have some people waiting in the waiting room. You're the only one that will be able to let them in.
Oh, okay.
Could you do that? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Of course. How do I do it? I see it says 4 people entered the waiting room view.
Yeah,
Yep. If you'll go to participants, it will show you the list, and then you just hit, there'll be a blue button that'll say admit.
Admit all, yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Thanks.
sure.
And as Robin, just real quickly, as we get back on track with this, I've got a question that I think is pertinent right now, and that is, do districts use these databases instead of Google?
You know, they recommend using them. Usually they recommend using them instead of Google. They say it's safer. They say we don't really believe that. And there's some issues with filtering that I'll talk about in a minute. But
Okay.
I mean, at least you can put a
Thanks.
filter on a Google search. These are actually pretty hard to filter. And so, but yeah, they say that they're safer than an internet search. They say they're more relevant. But when we've interviewed teachers and students, and they say, you know, they're not relevant. You know, you search on something, you get all kinds of stuff that you're not expecting to see. You're a little kid and you've got college level journals, or you're an older student and you're getting pop magazines. So I don't see, you know, I've heard that they're not that relevant and really not that good. And then you have the embedding of the obscenity and advertising. So, but anyway, if you're interested in pursuing this, you know, a good place to start is actually the public library. It's usually easier to get in. It's more straightforward. And you can use your library card, and you know, you can go in and do a litmus test of just typing, you know, words that shouldn't be there. Some databases are worse than others. They do vary, and they've also vary school to school and state to state. So, you know, what you're seeing in there may depend on also if there's been prior complaints in a school or a state. There may have been some, you know, steps taken to do a partial cleanup, which is good. It's never adequate that I've seen. You know, some states have actually done some self-regulation because, you know, some of this information has been out in the news with the Dirty Dozen list, and some news stories and whatnot. So, you know, it could just vary. Some places might be much worse than others. And I do recommend taking some screenshots. We're doing something to document it if you want to move it forward, and make some complaints, raise some concerns. I'm going to go through this sample pathway. This is a public library. It happens to be in Colorado. And what you do when you go into the public library, just look around. Okay, you'll probably see youth or teens, or you might just see homework research databases or homework databases. And so once you find that, in this case, we don't have those pretty icons. We just have the words academic search. That's an EBSCO database. I'm going to look inside Explorer for middle school and high school here. And when I do that, I came up with some very disturbing material. So again, this is an EBSCO database for secondary school students. And it's embedded with these obscene images. They're directly in the article. I believe that they were saying this was an academic journal. I don't recall reading academic journals like this when I was in college, but there you go. And then these terms here, I just want to point out. So you have some author supplied keywords, and then you have some subject terms that are presented by EBSCO, so by the database vendor, to the children. And these are live hyperlinks. So basically they're telling the children to extend their search by clicking on that link to gay pornographic films or public sex. So this is the type of thing. This is another one. We actually originally found this in an elementary school database. This is also EBSCO. This article, and many articles don't have pictures in them. They did at one time. So 5 years ago, there was a lot more pictures. So we actually are, you know, we're moving the needle, which is a good thing. But there's still a lot of work to be done. This article is text, time to ease your fears and your sphincter. You can imagine how obscene and harmful to minors this article is. And I want to point your attention to the reference section. And in this reference section, again, here you have a clickbait. These are live hyperlinks to so-called references that say women should try anal play, you know, why girls should have anal sex, why straight guys should be playing with their butts. And these are just available for the kids to click on. So if they take the click, they're going to go here directly. This happens to be playboy.com, and this is a link from that article. And so is this. This is Cosmopolitan. Now, Cosmopolitan is actually a Hearst publication, and it appears that Hearst is a pretty big publishing client of EBSCO and Gale. And so we do see a lot of hot links to Cosmo. And I think in this audience, probably you know that the Cosmopolitan online magazine has a sex, I think they call it Sex and Love, and it's just straight up pornography and just stuffed with advertisements for sex paraphernalia. This is a school. And so we're in the online library, and we've gone into the research database portal. This particular school doesn't have EBSCO anymore because there was so much pressure in the community that they actually canceled their subscriptions, but they do have Gale. And this is Gale Opposing Viewpoints. So if you click on that, this is what it looks like on the inside. There's two ways that you can search here. You can type words into the search field, or you can select one of the topics, and they have something like 400 topics, and some of them you're really wondering why they would have this as a topic for kids, like pornography or things like that. Abortion happens to come up at the top. It starts with an A. So we click on this. It gives you a chance to look at how this is laid out in here. So you can see the different types of media. You can see news, you can see magazines, you can see the journals. In this particular case, they also have websites. And so if you click on the websites, the first one that comes up is Abortion Clinics Online, and that is a hot link. So they're actually advertising abortion clinics online to the kids, and they're calling this Scholastic. And it literally, you just type your zip code in there and it brings up a list of abortion clinics. So we feel that what we're looking at is really the exploitation of K-12 schools as a marketplace for the adult entertainment industry, for the abortion industry. We're even getting reports in now of links to pot shops and online gambling. So this is the way, we talked about that kind of front door, back door advertising. So EBSCO attracts publishing and advertising partners in one way, and then they market their product to schools in another way. EBSCO, for example, calls themselves the natural partner. This is from their website, and this is their marketing material to attract publishing clients. So they say, give us your stuff, whatever you want. We're going to get it to the target market, which, as you can see, includes K-12 schools, and will increase awareness of your publisher content. And on this slide, and I want to make this point that these research databases are actually pretty important in schools. They're not just passively sitting in an online library. Teachers are targeted aggressively by the sophisticated advertising of EBSCO and Gale. And so, many school teachers are in the classroom and they are actively directing their students to these databases. We're going to do some research right now. Please go in and use EBSCO or use Gale, whatever they have. So at the top of this slide, this is EBSCO. And so you can see them targeting educators, learn how EBSCO is helping educators achieve curriculum goals. And at the bottom in the box, it's just some of the material that was found in one of the databases that were used in the K-12 school there, which is not Scholastic. And here, Gale, same thing, targeting educators. You work tirelessly to keep your students on track. Gale provides curriculum aligned content, empowering educators. A lot of talk about empowering educators. And then in the bottom, this is some of, this probably meets the legal definition of obscene and harmful to minors. It doesn't seem to have any scholastic merit. So here you have Gale, make your content more discoverable. They're marketing their database products to prospective publishing and advertising partners. Why partner with us? Realize additional revenue in rich new marketplaces and so on. So if you do go into these databases, I recommend taking a look at what they call news, because you see press releases, sometimes for adult products or services like these. And they advertise, this is actually from a search on Adam and Eve, and it brought up Adam and Eve's sex shop. And some of these have, they advertise the Pornhub or Adam and Eve, for example, with the URL, and sometimes with hot links that go directly to those sites. So why would schools allow this? I mean, it's possible they don't know. Maybe they want to avoid embarrassment or liability. At least in Colorado, we've seen some evidence that perhaps there might have been some financial incentives. And I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but I think it's important to mention the American Library Association and their role in this, because I feel like anyone that's recently been to a school board meeting or perhaps given testimony has probably experienced the opposition coming from the library community. So I just wanted to give it just a very quickly. The American Library Association, or the ALA, is a very, very powerful group in this country. They have chapters in pretty much every state and other affiliate organizations, and they keep their librarians on a pretty tight leash. They are expected to report parents or even their own coworkers as censors if they should question any content based on age appropriateness. And this is actually from our own experience in Colorado. So as I say, about 6 years ago, when we found the porn in the databases, we brought it forward to the school as an initial step. And the superintendent at that time pretty much indicated to us, you know, look, I know this is a problem, but I'm getting so much pushback from my library leadership team because they say if I remove anything, it's going to be a book banning or censorship. And I'm paraphrasing him, but essentially, this is what happens is they come out as opposition to parents. And we see this around the country now where a lot of parents are coming out with the ebooks. And that was actually something I wanted to mention. Some of the ebooks, they're pretty easy to find in the school online library, but don't forget to go behind the digital wall. Look at Overdrive, Sora, Libby, and Novelist. And even though I'm not focusing on that, there's ebooks in there too. The ALA, they have actually written their own Bill of Rights for minors, which essentially stands in glaring contrast with state and federal obscenity statutes for minors. They say that a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged based on age. And that's why when anyone comes forward and says, look, this is not age appropriate, you've got pornography here, they say you're a censor. Now, the ALA is actually rumored to be linked to the porn industry. We don't know that, but I have put this slide together that kind of shows some similarities between the American Library Association and something called the Free Speech Coalition, which is the trade group for the adult entertainment industry. So they both oppose the passage and enforcement of obscenity laws. The ALA even sued. Thankfully, they were not successful to overturn the Children's Internet Protection Act. The ALA collaborated with the Free Speech Coalition to overturn successfully the Child Porn Protection Act, and so on. So you have some similarities there. And then importantly, the American Library Association has a very close and circuitous financial relationship with commercial school vendors like EBSCO and Gale. And these commercial vendors, so EBSCO, Gale, and some other commercial school vendors actually founded something called the Corporate Committee for Library Investment. And what that does is it lobbies the federal government for tax money for libraries. And those libraries take that money and they show their gratitude by purchasing the products made by these vendors. So they go out and they buy the EBSCO and the Gale databases, neat and tidy. And so in a way, the library is almost being used as a megaphone for these corporate vendors. Every library, if you haven't heard of it, it's a front for EBSCO and Gale and some other corporate school vendors. And so actually worth taking a look because they kind of do an astroturfing kind of thing. So if you get in touch with them and you say, okay, I'm facing a local, censorship attempt by parents in a school, they will use their funding and help organize what appears to be local opposition, but it's actually pretty top down. And that's why the talking points are kind of the same all around the country. So I think I'll probably just stop here. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds with it. But with our organization, and I've put our contact information up here, we really welcome people to get in touch with us. We have networked around the country, and we have a toolkit. We can help people find these databases, and we recommend that they go to meetings, write letters, social media, etc. We have actually been involved with 11 states now that have introduced so-called database bills to hold these vendors accountable. They passed in Idaho and Utah, and just some other, tools in our kits. So thanks very much. I think I'll stop here.
Oh, that was so good. So helpful. If you will stop share.
Okay.
And I will take back over.
Okay.
And I will try and monitor some of the chats, questions, comments that are coming in. One of them, Marcia says, I'm told access to these databases is available to any student or citizen in terms of available by going through the school's website, click on library, and you can gain access to all this material and the things that you've mentioned here today. Is that as simple as that?
Oh, well, in theory, it's as simple as that. I think that it's probably fair to say that all schools, or certainly most of them around the country, are going to have some of these databases. They probably have EBSCO and or Gale. And so if you can find, go into the online library, find the research databases, and then you'll have to see which ones they have. So, you'll have to, just kind of click around. And as I said, some are worse than others, so and it depends on if there's been prior complaints. But pretty much is that simple. Also be aware that increasingly many schools around the country are putting links to the local public libraries also in the school online library. I think this is really important, and sometimes these relationships are very, very formalized. So we actually have that situation in Colorado where some of the schools, several large school districts said, you know what, we're not going to use EBSCO anymore because we can't work with them. So they canceled their subscription. What they did instead was they put a link to the public library. Public library is actually worse than the school ever was, even in the very beginning. So
yeah, I know. I wish my daughter were here tonight. She told me, this was back when she was in high school. She said, Mom, you can't believe how easy it is at school while you're pretending to do homework.
oh
Yeah.
So she saw it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This was at our high school that she went to. Wendy's asking, how are the state database laws worded? What can we be looking for? She's not asking this. I'm just extending it to what could we be looking for then in terms of the wording within the law?
There's a few most states actually have an obscenity exemption for schools and libraries. And these are very, very archaic, and a lot of states are trying to repeal those obscenity exemptions. But states also have laws protecting minors from obscene and harmful content. So I think every state has that, and federally also. So the legislation that we've been working on, and it looks different in the 11 states, but pretty much what we're trying to accomplish is just to hold these vendors accountable. So if you're going to come into a state and you're going to sell these databases, you have to respect the obscenity laws and statutes. Otherwise, the contract's void, or however they word the bill. Sometimes there's right of action, or.
Yeah. I'm wondering, this is just my question and my concern, especially in talking to one of my neighbors that is on here tonight. How do we as parents, as a community, start to become more engaged in this process of not banning?
Yeah, and it's so important. It really is, and it's really actually exciting what's happening around the country, because people are coming out and they're finding the books and the ebooks, and there's some really nasty pornography in some of those, and it's getting some national attention. The databases are at least as bad, if not worse, but they're kind of behind that wall a little bit, so you have to look a little bit harder for them. I recommend that if people are interested in this, go on our website. We have some information on our website on Pine, and the National Center on Sexual Exploitation has a really good explanation of what you're looking at least with EBSCO there. And then I think personally a good place to start, is the public library, and look and see if they have those homework databases, because it's just easier to get in, and then go into your school and then see if you can find the school's online library. It's amazing that some schools are actually trying to even hide their libraries. So, you have to call them up and say, tell me how to get to your library. I want the password so that I can get in and look at the databases. And we can actually help people do that sometimes if they get in touch with us. But, I just recommend, reaching out to school leaders and to state leaders, and, expressing concern about the EBSCO and the Gale databases. And, these are, at least EBSCO is on the Dirty Dozen list. Why are we using these databases? Look, I found these pictures. I screenshot them. We don't like this. Go to school board meetings. And if you write letters to people, copy a lot of people so that one person doesn't just kind of take it and toss it out, kind of get all the stakeholders there. If you have access to social media, we've had some good luck actually with the news, even with mainstream news, because this should be a bipartisan issue when you really stop and think about it. Nobody needs porn for kids. Why is there porn? Why are these database vendors allowed to get away with this?
Yeah. Going along with that, April is asking, what's the best way to remove harmful books then from shelves without being accused of banning, like we were talking about? She says, I was told we could ask for inappropriate books to be moved to the reference section under parenting. Are there any other ideas in that regard?
The librarians will just tell the kids that, the library is for the kids, so the kids will know where those books are. Yeah, it's a terrible problem. And I think maybe, I have a thought in my mind of being aware of who the opposition is. Who is it that's saying that parents are censors when they say that this book is pornographic? This book's obscene for minors. Who is it? This is very top down. And that was why I wanted to mention the American Library Association, because they have state chapters and affiliates all around the country. And oftentimes it's the librarians, that are coming in and they're saying, look, we have the Bill of Rights for minors. We can't take anything away because that would be censorship. You must be a book burner. And if you look around the country, you just see these talking points are so top down. They are so uniform from one state to another, from one school to another. So I say no to the opposition, because I think that some of this is really, you're coming back to this relationship between these commercial vendors and publishers and the library associations. So they get money for one another, so I think exposing them. I think looking at the American Library Association, go and look at their Freedom to Read Foundation, which is their legal branch, and they do some legal bullying of schools. If you look on their website of their Freedom to Read Foundation, they have a whole list on there that they're very proud of all the legal actions that they have taken to basically stand in the way of any kind of law or provision that would keep children safer. So I'd say expose them. I know that doesn't really answer the question, but
exposing is a great, that's a great start. Jennifer in California says, when my son was in second grade, she had a big talk with the librarian. And she said that, yes, they have a grade to read, but when they are in the library, they can read any book in the library.
Of course.
So, yeah. I mean, how do you, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've heard kids tell me, and these are older kids, that they didn't like to go to the library anymore by the time they were in high school, because they said the librarian keeps trying to talk to me and get me to read books that I don't want to read.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that.
Yeah. Marcia just said she went to Gilbert. This is in Arizona High's website, and got to their library, but then it requires an account of some kind with the parent, the child. And you'd need to gain access through their student's account, which is the same here, Marcia. Gilbert High has EBSCO. I believe that's what we have as well. And then anyway, is there a way for parents to gain direct access without using their students' accounts?
Right. So as far as you can call the school and find out if they have a generic password. That's the best. If a child is young and if the kid will give it to you, you can just ask your kid, what's your password, and use their password. I would caution, however, that don't leave a footprint in there, because, sometimes if you're in there and you're doing a litmus test and you're looking at a naughty word or something, and maybe there's some kind of a footprint that gets left in there that the child sees, I worry about that. There may be ways to erase it. Maybe people are more tech savvy, or just and this is really an issue, and we think that there should probably be some legislation. I don't know exactly how to word it, where parents are given, if you will, mirror passwords, so that the parent has a password that they can go in, they can satisfy themselves, look around, see what's in those databases, see if they like them or they don't like them, but they don't have to risk leaving any kind of a footprint in their child's account. So I think at this point, it's contacting the school and saying, I want to see what's in these databases. I want some kind of password.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how difficult they make it for parents. April is also suggesting, and she's in California as well. She just says, I also recommend people go in and speak to their city council. Most mayors and city council members have no idea that this is available to the kids in their particular city or their community.
That's a wonderful suggestion. Yeah. And sometimes, the county or the city is responsible for the library too. We actually did that. We went into our library and you're right. They didn't know. We brought, we printed out, put it in a brown envelope, print out some evidence and go in there and show it to them. They were very upset, actually. They did some cleanup. It wasn't good enough. But.
Well, and then Robin, what I'm thinking is when these are all electable positions, right? And so when they become up for re-election, if they did nothing about it or simply didn't care, you can expose that as well. So I think the time has passed for us to do passive efforts here. I think we do have to expose what's going on. And if they are complicit and allow not doing anything to prevent this, these are the children in the city that they supposedly govern. And if they're not going to do anything about it, we need to expose them and get them to be unreelected.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. And to bring it up with those who are running for election, just to make them aware, even at the beginning, of the election process. Good points, April.
Yeah, the school board members and superintendents is the same thing. These are all electable positions.
Right.
So you're not going to get anywhere with people who are in the library system or people who are part of the school district admin, because they keep their jobs no matter what. But I think what Robin is saying is so crucial. You have to let I mean, think what's happened just with the whole Florida bill. It's the exposure. We've known this has been going on for years, right? With CSE in schools. Now parents are finally getting aware that this stuff is everywhere and they're shocked, right? So if we can just keep that momentum going right now, that did you know that I mean, you can go to wikipedia.com and there's a ton of porn. You know, I mean, it's all over the place. So it's like you need to start getting parents to understand, and parents are angry, but we haven't seen the tip of the iceberg yet on this one. Parents are going to get a lot more angry if we let them know what's going on. And people are elected positions. They need to be held responsible for what they're allowing in our schools. And the superintendent and school board members are elected positions.
That's right. That's right.
It could potentially be a really great campaign issue for a candidate to get them to take that on. I think they would get a fair amount of traction with it, especially today when parents are awake.
I think so too. It seems daunting though, doesn't it? How, you know, like, but just again, with the momentum and the more that you talk to your family, your neighbors, you know, did you know? Yeah. Any other questions to ask Robin tonight while we have her captive? Nicole, did you have some? You and I had a chat.
I don't think so. I think mine is more frustration because we just are using Google as ours. And so it's not, they try and regulate, and my kids, I have their passwords, so I get on and see. But the library portion is eye-opening to me of like, oh, maybe I should do more there. Yeah, not any, but thank you.
No,
just to comment on that, we actually ended up just doing Google searches as well. And I think, parents today, they tell their kids, you might find something bad when you're, you talk to your kids about porn when they're old enough in an age appropriate way. And you have filters that work, sometimes not perfectly, but at least with the Google search, most children know if they find something bad, they know they found something bad. Okay, they get it and they know they should look at it. When they find something bad in these research databases, a lot of times you have the school's name kind of emblazoned across the top of the page, and their teacher told them to go there, and they told them this is safer, than an internet search. It's very reliable, the great research. So this is what actually really concerns me. Some of the soft porn actually concerns me even more than the hard porn in these databases, like Cosmopolitan magazine, for example. It's presented as a fashion magazine. It's so normalized, and when you get in there, the content, if you've looked at this content, it is absolutely horrific what is in that online magazine. But I think that children can be fooled into thinking, oh, it's just, a health, women's health magazine or something like that. And so I think this is so damaging. I really dislike these research databases for that reason, that they appear to be endorsed.
Wow. So
I do have one other question.
Oh, you bet.
As far as the footprint that comes when they're searching somewhere, whether it's with their Google account or whatever the account is, I guess my concern becomes, man, I almost wish they would give them a new password each year. So it's not, if they looked at something in 2020, then when it's 2024, I feel like things follow them like pop-ups, right? Especially, I hate YouTube, because one show comes on and then the next and then the next, and we're not allowed to, as parents, to block it from YouTube. It's set up through our district. So YouTube's its own beast. And that's kind of where I guess my frustration is at the moment, is with YouTube specific.
Which YouTube videos are embedded in research articles and in yeah, it's real helpful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had a concern. My oldest is going to be starting junior high this next year, And they informed me that he's going to be given a Chromebook that he's supposed to bring home and he's in charge of taking care of. And I had mentioned that I support paper. I don't really like computers, which again, they said is not really much of an option. And I kind of asked about like the safety of, they get on the internet and all of these things. And the reply that the school had for me is that when they are on the school's like browser, when they're on their internet, that all of these things are blocked. But once they get into their homes, they don't have any control of that. And so I'm wondering if maybe people were to bring up some of this stuff, if the reply would be, oh, well, they can't access it when they're at school. I don't know if you've heard anything like that before.
Yeah, actually, and that's a really important point that you're bringing up there, because it's kind of a fallback argument. The schools say, don't worry, we have internet filters. Well, you need an internet connection to get into the databases. But once you're in there, you're in a relatively shielded environment. Remember, that's proprietary, and they're only leased, if you will, to the schools. So the schools cannot do an adequate job of filtering the insides of those databases. And remember, too, that those databases are designed, if they're using them on the school property on the Chromebook, but if they access them from a home computer, or they lose their Chromebook and they access it, on their phone, for example, there's mobile apps. Actually, some schools promote the mobile apps for these Gale and EBSCO databases. There's not going to be any filtering, not even of the third-party links. So where I said there's hot links to Pornhub, you would hope that your school or your home filter is going to block a link to a third-party link to Pornhub that's advertised to the children. But if they're on their phone, that's not going to happen, probably. So it's pretty loose. It shouldn't be there. I think what I always come back to is, why is it there? Why do you have to have obscene material and hot links to Pornhub? Why is it there so that we all have to worry about blocking it? It shouldn't be there.
Yeah, in the very first place.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've got a couple more comments that still go along with this same conversation. One of them is, can you use filters for the Wi-Fi and router? And then that's from Jennifer. And then we've got a response here that there is one that's a little more technical. This is the one that they use, and that is in your chat as well. And that is to everyone. So you can all see that, give that a try as far as filters. And it is frustrating because it's so difficult to catch everything in the filtering process. And then Jennifer also mentioned that she just now did a search of their high school, and they do have the Gale database, Robin, and you can probably see this in the chat, but it's asking me, Fontana High School, please enter your library ID, barcode, or other ID. So now, see, again, as parents, we're stuck. What do you do if you don't have access to that, other than ask your child and have communication with your child?
Right, you can ask the child. You can also try asking the school. You can call the IT director, or you can call the librarian. There's always the risk that they might, somehow finesse it so that they don't really give you the real password. But, I think they might have a generic password. A lot of these schools still do use a generic password sometimes. So that can be useful. And as parents or as taxpayers, even if you don't have kids in the school, your taxpayers, I think you're entitled to go up to the school and say, I'd like to sit with you. I want to look through these databases.
That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
Let's sit down together. Let me show you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Make an appointment with student services and IT. That's great, actually, for real. Oh, this was excellent. Folks online with this, any other questions, comments, insight that you want to bring up and point out with Robin?
Teresa, it looks like Nicole had a question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see
You're
that.
okay. I just wanted to say, our school district, one thing that I have been happy with is with their Google account login and password, when they do log in, they have the same filters or whatever on any computer at home, at school. And I can get on and see their search history that they've done under their account. So that's been a good thing for us to talk about. What have you been looking at? I can pull it up and see it because we share what those logins are. And whether he brings his Chromebook home or we log on to it from our home computer, his browse history is there. So if you folks who are trying to push for something else, I don't know if that's a helpful component.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. April just is saying another real problem with Chromebooks is that they have a camera and they share data across the system. So that, yeah. I'll tell you, it's just so hard to keep up, isn't it? And they do that on purpose. Oh, this was fantastic. Robin, thank you so very much. And we appreciate your time, your expertise, all of the background that and sacrifice you have made to bring this to the forefront. And you'll probably be hearing from us in the form of going to your Pine website. And again, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me share this information. I'm really excited about the momentum that's building around the country. So,
well, keep it up, and where we can help, we certainly want to. So, thank you.